Your mics are on, they're hot now. Your mics are hot.
I haven't turned it on.
Yes,
You want me to do that now? I may make some.
You don't have to take it with you, but-
So would you like me to mute the Zoom?
Because I see Roberto's back there laughing at me. See, that's about to generate a really unkind response from me. You know? Spoon this helicopter up and see if we get one here.
All right, so we'll call this meeting to order, and as always, we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Roll call. Clint Nelson here, Julie Johnson, Peter Hensley, Patty Townsend Smith, Bill Stewart, Chad Williams alternate.
Present.
Okay. Item 4, instructions to allow public comment on agenda items and those attending this meeting via teleconference or video conference. If at any point anyone would like to ask a question or make a comment and have joined this meeting with their computer, they can click on the raise hand button located at the bottom of the screen. We will be alerted they would like to speak. When called upon, please unmute the microphone and ask the question or make comments in no more than 3 minutes. Those who have joined by dialing a number on their telephone will need to press *6 to unmute themselves and then *9 to alert us they would like to speak. Slight pause will also be offered at the conclusion of each agenda item discussion to allow public members an opportunity to make comments or ask questions. Seating of alternates. Chad, we're glad you're here, but I think we have a pretty good quorum today. Yahoo. Please stay.
Hi, Patty. Hi. Hi.
All right, so we will show Patty Townsend Smith as present. We just finished the roll call, so glad you're here.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're on item 6. That would be additions, deletions, amendments to the agenda. As always, we'll start with the staff. Do you guys have anything you want to change?
Yeah, we're gonna be removing number 13. That's been moved to a closed session.
Okay,
14.
Yep.
As well as gonna move out to next month.
what's the other one?
Number 14.
14, okay.
So 13 is a permanent removal. 14 is next month.
All righty. Deleted. Permanent, okay, not coming back, right?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, do any of the committee members have any additions, deletions, or amendments to the agenda?
No.
Okay. Item 7, public comment relating to items not on the agenda. Do we have any members of the public here? We do not have a cast of thousands waiting to hear exactly what we have to say here.
And we did not receive.
I am
any-
stunned.
And we did not receive any written comments.
No
So
written
disappointing.
communication, so we continue to work in total obscurity here, right? All righty. Item 8, approval of minutes. All of you have received in your packets the minutes that Dawn and her team have thoughtfully prepared. Are there any suggested changes to these minutes? If not, I'm looking for a motion.
Second.
Okay, so Bill moves to approve and Julie seconds. And since we are all in the room, we can do this by voice acclamation. So all those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Nay. Unanimously approved. Yahoo. Okay. Number 9, general manager comments. Are you pinch hitting or are we just skipping?
We can skip because I see we do have detachment on here. So
Okay,
Tom's at the San Diego County Water Authority budget meeting.
really, no doubt. Item 10, finance manager comments. Tracy?
Hello. So included in your packet, the rate notice that went out last week. Carlene and I worked with a public relations firm to kind of just beef this up a little bit, get more of the message across about what it is that we're doing here, the reasons for the rate increase, and just kind of give a better message so that people understood what the changes are that are being proposed and also how they can participate. So I'm sure some of you remember what these used to look like. We've
This is
sort of
much
improved
nicer.
them over the years. We had a very tight time frame to get this done. So
Mhm.
there's still some things we do a little bit differently, but they are significantly improved. So that's in your packet. Those went out on Saturday. It sounds like some of you have received them.
Yeah. Very professional.
Thank you. The rest of my items I can save for the agenda subject
Okay,
areas.
thank you. Item 11, committee member comments. Do any committee members have it? Do you got anything, Julie? Any comments?
Well, I don't know if this was brought up before, but Robert, I read your article in Lincoln and it was very impressive.
Anything else?
Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Bill, you got any comments?
Nothing, except hopefully we'll get good attendance tomorrow evening. At the local town hall meeting,
Mm-hmm.
6 p.m. at FBUD, I understand.
Mhm.
Okay. We'll see.
Director Townsend? Smith, I'm sorry. It's a hyphenated. Do we call you Patty? Do we call you Director? Patty is fine.
Be great.
Okay, Patty, you have any comments?
No.
Okay. Pete?
Yeah, I've got just one question.
Okay.
And I live in association 25 units. I guess my question is, the treasurer came to me and said, we got this notice of some increases. How do I figure out how much our bill is gonna go up next? That's my question to you. How do they
Mhm.
determine this, what they're increasing their billing?
Well, they can call any of our customer service reps. They've been trained to walk customers through these, but also they can just look up their meter size. And there's an area with the fixed cost. They can see what the existing rate is compared to the fiscal year 24 rate and subtract the difference. And then same with the variable rates. Let's say they use 20 units a month. They would just look at the existing rate and the new rate and subtract the difference. Because there's so many different variations on what could happen this in order to include them all in here, it would, be a catalog. So they're welcome to call our customer service staff and we can walk them through their
Just call
specific
in and
accounts.
They
Yeah,
are and how much we gotta go. up.
yeah.
They're concerned about.
Anything else, Pete?
Oh.
Okay, good. All right. So we will move on to item number 12, fiscal year 2023-2024 operating and capital budget presentation, and we have a nice handout. And Tracy, I'm assuming that's you?
Yes. Can you
Okay.
pull that up, Ahmed? Go ahead and hit play. So a lot of this is going to be repeat of what you've seen in the cost of service presentation. If my clicker works. It works. Thank you. So this is the first year we've actually been able to do the order of operations correctly in this, where you do the cost of service study first and determine what the proposed rates should be to cover the cost of service to serve the district. And then you do your budget based on that cost of service study. So we did a whole in-depth new cost of service study. And then every year after, during the 5-year study, you just update that. You don't go into all the work that it takes to do a full study. So we're using the assumptions from the cost of service study because we're just finishing that up. So they're still valid. We are doing the 12,700 acre feet, 0 developer fees, and the same cost escalations that I went over in the cost of service study assumptions. Not going to go into each of those because we've already talked about them, but there will be one that changes probably at mid-year, and that's our benefits. We've gotten some information from our providers that those will be going up when we hit open enrollment. That would be a mid-year budget adjustment. There's really no way to know what the cost impact of that's going to be right now, because as our costs go up, employees could change plans and we don't have the actual percentage increase of that yet. So for now, we're just keeping the benefits increase at 3%. And then we also are going to have our pass-through increases on here. Now, the cost of water, we don't know yet. So those get implemented in January 1. So we adjust those at mid-year also. Again, these are our targets that we're trying to hit when we are setting rates. So we want to have 90 days of O&M, 2 years of the 5-year CIP plan, and then our liability self-insurance fund. And then we want to refund that rate stabilization over 5 years. That's really important. So this ideal target is what we use to set the rates on and then what we've done the budget off of. So the ideal targets really are best practice in case there's a spike in inflation, an emergency, catastrophic event, or all these things at once. We want to be prepared with our reserves to deal with that.
We have depleted the rate stabilization
Yes.
fund, haven't we?
Yes,
Okay.
and our reserves are not where they should be.
Right.
So this pie chart you've seen, you can see the water purchases account for 46% of all of our spending. Capital projects is 18. What we're going to dig into a little deeper here that's different than the cost of service study is we're going to look at where all these other categories are and what our plan is. So this is our acre feet by customer class over the last 10 years that I showed you guys, where ag has significantly decreased and residential has stayed pretty flat. So again, we're budgeting at 12.7 for next year too. That's what we're hitting this year. We're just going to be really conservative. I can remember 5 years ago when I started, the board directed me to budget at 13.5, and I would just, I thought that was incredibly low. And now here we are at 12.7, which is sad, especially when you look at this one for the last 23 years. You can really see that decline in purchases. So we are budgeting purchases at 13.8. We still have some water loss to deal with the issue with the meters under registering. But again, we always budget very conservatively and hope to have that issue resolved before the busy season. Hope to have a busy season this year. A wet season is not what we're hoping for. Okay, this is the net operating income for each of the 3 operating funds. So we've got water, wastewater, and the general fund summarized here. So you can see we have 3.2 million budgeted for a net income for water. So that'll fund the capital plan and the board approved reserve minimums. So that's to help us start funding those minimums and have funds to transfer over to our capital plan. So these are based on the proposed revenue increases for water of 9%. The $1 million loss that you see this year projected in wastewater, that's using up what's left of those reserve funds, the 8 million that we have, that we received from Citro and what's left of that. But we've addressed that in the cost of service study, bringing the wastewater rates up to what our neighboring regions are charging. So again, the wastewater numbers here are also based on that proposed increase for July 1. And then the general fund is funded by transfers from water and wastewater. So the revenues and expenses there are also reflected in the water and wastewater. Okay. This one is some detail on the water operating. Again, these revenues are based on the based on the July 1 proposed rate increases. What we've done with the budget this year, of course, there's been a lot of inflation escalations, utility increases in here. We've tried to balance that with keeping everything flat. There's no new ads this year, no new positions, and we've pumped the brakes not just in some of the capital spending, but also on the operations side in our vehicle replacement. Now, that's not something that makes me happy. It's not something I want to do in future years. I think it's really important to have a planned vehicle replacement program and, specific maintenance things. But this is a year where we're saying, we need to work on replenishing reserves. So that will be temporary. This one is our wastewater operating. You can see that our forecast again is $1 million loss, but with that rate increase that would that's proposed for July 1, we would have a budgeted net position increase of just over $600,000. And that's with no planned growth. So the next slide is your general operating. You can see some reductions here. Again, we've tried to keep things very flat and reduce where we could. For example, in administration, we're not planning to spend as much with consultants. Detachment goes to vote this year, so that should go down significantly. We had some reductions on risk management. What were those for, Renee? Do you know? Okay.
Which we did end up lowering because as of this year to date, we haven't spent that much. So we're being conservative for next year.
Okay,
and we're
thank
lowering
you.
that.
Okay, the next one is our water capital projects. We're finishing up some big projects this year, and we had one that went over into fiscal year 24. So we had an increase in the Rice Canyon transmission line. So we are delaying some of the others until we can build up our reserve levels. And then this is our water projection. It's hard to see on the screen, but what this does is it parallels our cost of service study and looks at what our capital plan is and what our operating plan is, and just projects out what we're going to have in reserves over the 5-year period. So right now at the end of year 1 with water operating and water capital, we would end fiscal year 24 at about $5 million based on the rates that we've proposed. That puts us at the end of year 5 at 36 million, which is right at that ideal target that we were looking at, where we have the 1 to 2 year average of 5 years of the capital plan and 90 days of O&M.
Tracy?
Yeah.
Can we go back a little?
Sure.
Yeah.
I think this question is probably, I've been with this committee for a while, but sometimes my brain gets a little frazzled. So maybe you can help me out. I'm looking at the page called Water Operating, where you have all of the various line items
Yes.
and the highlighted proposed budget column. Okay. And then I look over to the right and I see, which is very helpful, all of the percent changes up or
Mhm.
down in the items. And what I'm trying to square in my head, which I believe this is a compliment to you guys, it's intended that way, if my understanding is correct. I went back to our key assumptions, and most of our key assumptions suggested cost and salary and other increases in the 3, 4, 5, 7% range. And yet most of our budget increases are below that, which would indicate to me that you must have made some cuts in stuff in order for the rate of, because you have two big ones that drive, you have the am I on the right page here? You have the admin.
Or you must be on the general fund.
Yeah, but do you see what I'm saying? Do you see
Yeah.
what, because like on the page where you did the admin. Yeah, I guess I was looking at the third page over general operating. I'm sorry, I misled you as always. But the point is still there. We have the two big ones, the admin and the risk management deflators, but everything else is in the 1, 2, 3% increase, when in fact our key assumptions were saying that we're having increases of 3, 5, 7%. So what did we do to get such a positive result here on the budget?
So some of them, like if you're talking about the percent change from prior year forecast, we've
Yeah.
had a lot of positions that have been open this year and that we've left open. So for example,
You
in
got salary savings.
we
in
have
there?
salary savings in
Okay.
many departments, customer service, engineering.
How does that look with overtime?
So we're going to be bringing a full salary analysis to the board meeting that Carlene does, that digs into every department and shows you, the staffing level versus how much overtime.
Mhm.
Our goal is always to keep all the positions filled so that we don't have exuberant overtime. We actually didn't have too much overtime in customer service. We were just able to all take on a piece of the empty positions, so that helped us there.
Mhm.
So.
Well, for most of last year, the overtime was trending down until we had some months with some catastrophic leaks more recently, but we were trending in a positive direction for most of the year.
Yeah, she does a really robust study that we're going to bring forward. It just, we didn't have it quite ready for this meeting.
Carlene, we didn't know you were there. You stealthed us.
Sorry.
There was this voice out of somewhere. It's like, whoa, who is this?
The other thing
Yeah.
with fiscal year 22, we ended, lower than we wanted to. So we implemented cuts pretty early, or just, trying not to spend if we didn't have to.
And did that also apply to goods and services as well as staffing?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
It
so,
applied in every area where we could save,
okay.
without there being a cost.
So that probably answers on wastewater operating. There's a significant change in net position, percentage wise. So that's
Right. Well, so you can see some of that we over budgeted on the revenues. So we've gotten better at in knowing when things are coming online. When we were doing both of those projects with Sidro and Horse Creek Ridge, it was hard to always know when those were going to come online and when to count them throughout the year. So that was part of the under budgeting on the revenue side. On the expense side, we do have a decrease in general fund expenses this year. So that makes a difference for wastewater. They cover about 20% of the general fund expenses.
okay. Thank you.
That's a good pickup though, Julie, because that's a $2 million swing.
Yeah.
You guys improved the net position by $2 million from negative 1.2 to positive 6.
Well, that is because we have that significant proposed rate increase in
Right,
here.
right.
We've been operating
Oh,
at a
that's right. And
deficit.
that's the big one too.
Yeah, we've been operating at a deficit in wastewater, which really wasn't a
Mm-hmm.
problem because we had so much reserves. If we had increased our rates earlier, you can get in trouble for having too much
Mm-hmm.
reserves. The state can make you pay them back. So
Mhm.
now we're at the point where we need to bring our wastewater fees up to what our neighboring agencies charge.
Question. When will these rate increases be effective?
So they'll be voted on at the June board meeting, and then whatever they pass at that meeting would be effective July 1st. So all those rates that the board recommended at the last meeting to open the hearing are reflected in this budget package.
Next week.
Okay, so we're back to the water projection. If any of you want to go into this in detail, we can. Basically, what it does is takes our beginning balance, looks at funds coming in and what that sheet with all the detail on it, all the capital projects, takes that out and then factors in what we'll have in the water operating reserve. So really, it's just that bottom line that we're really concerned about getting that one up.
I'm seeing our favorite discussion, Live Oak Park
Mhm.
Road Bridge.
Hmm.
So am I reading this correctly that we may need more money on that?
We have 200,000 budgeted in
Okay.
fiscal year 24 on that to finish it up.
Okay, maybe I'm reading it wrong.
It's, I hate to use the term carrying it over, but
Oh,
that
okay.
project is the county's side. We're
Right.
contingent on their schedule. They are delayed. So we will go, we were supposed to be done March, April.
Mhm.
Here we are, May. We anticipate going into next fiscal year. So we're moving that money out.
Okay, thanks for the clarification. It's just that one project just keeps coming.
Yeah, you
very
can,
good
you can see
project.
that we had a budget for this year of 600,000 on that.
Yeah.
We're forecasting to spend 400. So that extra 200 is basically going to be spent next
delayed
year.
spend.
But it's not done.
It's still not.
Okay, all right.
And
thanks.
with the wry smile, I'll just go ahead and ask, when do we actually think they will finish that? I realize it's a San Diego Public Works project, so it's probably, the projection is, we'll let you know when we're finished, right? Is that,
Kinda. The biggest hurdle we're encountering now is an existing AT&T telephone pole, which is in conflict with everything else that's out there. The pole was always there, but no one picked up that the pole was there. And then when work added around,
how hard is it to see a huge telephone pole?
Yes.
Okay.
so when the
Incredible.
the county.
This is incredible that. you know,
Maybe they painted it in camouflage like me, right?
maybe,
Mhm.
but so when work started excavation around that pole, AT&T became almost stopped the whole project until we were all able to get it resolved.
Patty, just for you to know, this is sort of like our little secret in here. It's like, okay, when is this going to get done?
For those of us that live on Live Oak Park Road.
So sorry, but that's why you're probably wondering, why are they focusing on this little project
Yeah,
out
so
here?
what Tracy's saying, we had originally 600,000, we were supposed to be done this fiscal year. We're just advancing 200,000 of that to the next.
Okay, thanks.
All right.
It's going, it's just going extraordinarily slow, but the county, we did some of our work, they're doing all of their work, and then we're gonna come back and finish our work.
Beautiful.
Okay, so year
Thank you. So
Year 5, we're just over 35 million on the projected ending balance for all the water fund reserves. So here's a graph of that really shows the importance of getting those up, because you see in fiscal year 23, we're going to end around $5 million, which is too low. But you can see that we have a plan to gradually bring that up over the 5-year study period. Next is the wastewater capital projects. So really the only thing we have on here right now is finishing up lift station 1. We have, we'll be spending a little bit less than was budgeted in this fiscal year. So we're moving that out, that 2.5 million, and then adding 2.5 million for fiscal year 24 to finish the project. We are proposing to bring those rates up to rebuild the reserve fund there and then start back at some of the other wastewater projects in year 3 through 5. And so where that will put us for wastewater is we're projected to end this next year with a deficit. And we're looking at funding 5 million right now. I've reached out to 3 different banks, and then I made contacts at Aqua last week with 6 additional banks that I spoke to each one at the vendor hall. And so I'm going to be sending out our RFP to them as well for some gap financing, just so that, you know, we have another 2.5 coming from Citro this next fiscal year, which will, you know, help us, but we don't want to bring our wastewater reserves down to 0. So that'll just give us
Right.
some cushion during this period while the rates catch back up with the funding. Hopefully we'll get some of those developments online between now and the next 2 years. So, but this whole budget assumes no developer fees and includes those rate increases that we've proposed.
What are you looking at on points and rate as you're reaching out on that financing?
You know, I left it pretty open. I asked for options from 5 to 20 years because if we do a short term, we can get a lot better rate. So I haven't gotten any back because the RFP due date hasn't come yet. I wanted to get a lot for the board to look at and choose from because we don't need a long-term loan right now. It would just be like basically gap financing for 2 to 5 years. So,
Original.
Are you finding a tightening of credit?
I've heard that that's what's out there, but it
Mhm.
sounds like there's a lot of options for us still.
Okay.
I think that that's the perception. So people aren't going for credit
Mhm.
so that they're a little bit hungrier. And this is a really good project. We have a good story to tell. We had our reserves saved up.
Mhm.
We had a lot of growth and we've funded the project 80% out of our reserves, which is pretty impressive. To only have to fund that much of it. And we have a great asset that we can use to back that.
Can I just is a little bit off topic. I'm looking at the lift station one. Am I correct in the math that this looks like a $24 million project? Is that what I'm seeing? For some reason, I had it in my head that this was about a $16 to $18 million project.
I think it's closer to 18 to 20.
Yeah,
Because I'm adding up
Yeah.
11, 10.8, 11 plus 8.2, that's 19 plus 5 is 24 is what I'm getting if I add these numbers.
You're double dipping there because the 10 and the 8 are the same fiscal year. One of them's the budget, and one of them's the forecasted spend.
Sorry, never mind. Okay,
But
no
the
comment.
Okay.
Fowler's bid was almost 16.
That's what I remember.
But yeah, but legal, staff, all the others.
Thank you. Sorry. You're right. I confused the columns. Thank you, Tracy.
I think that was my last slide. So are there any questions? Do you want to go back? When I bring this next month, do you guys want more detail? The budget packet that goes out for the approval of it will have the department by department detail.
This goes back to the board, their June meeting, correct?
So
May.
I'll probably give a presentation in June and in May and June, but it doesn't get voted on until June. So at this meeting, I'm just looking for feedback from the committee. And then next month, I'll ask the committee to recommend approval for the June board meeting. But we don't want to just bring it to you and not give a chance for feedback or suggestions.
I have a question. Since you're working with this daily,
Projection,
all of it,
all of it.
what would you say are your number one concerns as we go into this that we need to keep an eye on?
As we go into the budget approval or
Right,
just,
right.
or the future of the district?
Well, both, I guess.
So my number one issue is getting the reserve levels up to the board approved levels. And that's so important because if we were to have some sort of catastrophic event and continue inflation,
Mhm.
we would be in trouble. So that's my number one priority. And then the next one is balancing affordability with keeping our infrastructure in a state of good repairs.
Excellent. Yeah, if something
Yeah.
should happen with operations,
But we have a good solid plan to get us there.
okay,
All right. So
excellent, thanks.
any other questions?
Very nice.
Patty?
Well, now I just kind of had a comment for the seniors and stuff. When we talked about budget at the last, board meeting, didn't you say there was a chance that the rates for the average homeowner would be like between $15 a month and 20?
The increase?
Yeah.
That was for wastewater. Yes.
So that's not including the whole increase?
So waste, I believe that one was, I'm trying to think of which one you're asking about. So the single family 3/4 inch average user would go up $18 a month
Okay.
was their bill impact for, I think that was the 8%, but I can get back to you.
Okay, I just thought for simplification.
Sometimes it's nice to see that. And I can include that next month. What's like a generic average
Right.
single rate payer bill impact? I'll include that. That's why we bring this a couple of times so that we can get feedback and know, what's gonna be helpful to see.
Well, you got anything, Bill?
No, if you combine water and wastewater for that average three-quarter meter, what does it come to?
Well, I would have to do it. Well, I could do it separately. It's hard to say an average person because we have
Yeah.
so few wastewater connections. So, there's, less
Single
than
family home
half,
have a
Yeah.
three-quarter meter,
but I'll do the same for both of them.
yeah, small lot.
Yeah.
Okay, that'd be good.
How many of the ratepayers do not have wastewater with Rainbow?
So our wastewater connections, I believe,
As many
are
are on septic.
Isn't it
about
two-thirds?
3,400, and then our water connections are about 8,600.
Okay. But with all the development that is soon to, will be happening someday on east side of 15,
Yeah, they're all.
that's gonna
on
all be
wastewater, yeah.
wastewater. Which would be,
So that was the big increase we saw where we needed
Right.
to add the lift station 1. And we got the 10.5 million for the Citro development, which would really helped with the project.
right. So that did have an impact. Because on this side of 15, many of us are on septic.
Yeah, the developers that we're currently in discussions with, Campus Park West, Ocean Breeze Ranch. The long-term healthcare facility off of Thoroughbred Lane. There's a couple off West Lilac, some like 6-acre parcels that want to subdivide. Those would all be on the San Luis Rey Horse Ranch. Those would all be part of the wastewater system.
That would make sense.
None of those would be septic. So we'd get cap fees on all, but like as Tracy said, some have been talking since 1990 and still talking. So we're not taking any of those into account
Right.
until they actually happen.
This is just a little suggestion.
Mhm.
And I'm benchmarking on budget presentations that I've seen in
Mhm.
past years from us. And I don't know whether the board particularly focused on any of it, of what I'm talking about in the past. So if not, I understand it. But my recollection was that when it came to the operation of the district, the 13 or
Mhm.
$14 million that we spend ourselves here, that there were brief one-line
Mhm.
descriptions of changes in staffing count or
Yes.
increase in the number of pipes we bought, there was something, and then there was, the purchase of capital equipment, there were some things in there. And I can't remember if the board ever really spent time talking about any of that or not, but I just was wondering if there's any value in indicating in some way kind of what those changes were.
Yeah,
to the-
absolutely. Normally we'll have, what the changes in staffing were, which there aren't any. It's just there's just not a lot of changes this year. That everything's pretty flat. But I think there is value in reflecting on what we've done for the year. So with our full budget presentation with the board, we plan on going through all the capital projects with Chad's presentation updated. That talks about where we've spent the money. And it just kind of goes more in depth. This is just sort of a quick, we started the budget. Here's the assumptions. Here's where we're at. This will change before we adopt it and have more information in it. When we take it to the board in June, it'll be both the budget and the rates. So I don't want to duplicate too much in both of
Right.
them
Right?
in the same meeting.
I guess what I'm trying to do is to give you an opportunity for the board and the ratepayers,
Mhm.
to the extent they are paying attention, to see what a good job Tom and the staff have
Right.
done in not growing the pie that we control, that we have actually taken substantial steps to hold that pie level. And I think that's noteworthy because in a time of great inflation, somehow this board, this district has done that. And so, I mean, maybe you
That's a good
guys are
addition.
reluctant to pat yourselves on the back, but I think that you should make that point because
I
the
agree.
ratepayers need to know that, yes, while the rates are going up, it is not because the staff of Rainbow and with the salaries they are paid and the stuff they buy to make this place run, they have not feathered their nest. Many companies are inflating their prices and their margins are growing, and that is the inflation we're seeing, is they've increased their profit, and yet this district has done none of that. This district has held the line, and I think that that's a story that ought to be told, Tracy. You
Well-
guys have.
Well,
done good work
there are two, thank you. And I'll do a better job at that. But we do have two more layers of this presentation that'll go to the board. That's Chad's presentation of the capital plan and Carlene's staffing analysis.
Okay,
But we can add more with some of the areas where we've been successful in
where
keeping
where
that.
it's relevant, but I just think you guys deserve to, don't hide your light under a bushel here, okay?
Okay.
And actually, to support that comment, like the town hall meeting,
Mhm.
how is that agenda? Is that sort of sharing the proactivity of the staff on addressing the very clear inflation that was occurring, the impact of many of the monies that we thought were going to be coming through from the housing development, how that stopped, the retail development, how that's been postponed, and the proactive teaming to do the very best you could with a situation that was changing in many ways, and you needed to respond in a positive, proactive manner. Just a thought.
Mhm. I think all of that, all the outreach that we've done this year.
And the transparency.
Yeah.
Like this is excellent. But I think when individuals know what is happening
Mhm.
and they know what is happening, they're living it as well every day in their personal lives. But how we are working together as a community to continue to keep our, like you said, the reserves in a healthy
Mhm.
manner, but also to have the balance of affordability
Mhm.
when also we have aging pipelines. We have things that do need to be repaired, emergency, and that it's been taken care of and responded to in a proactive way. And that no rate consumer was left out to say, I'm sorry, we don't have any staff to help you at this
Mhm.
time.
All right. Thank you. It's good feedback.
Because maybe, I think when you get a call, you address it. Robert, you're also on this, and so I've never heard anyone in my community sharing that Rainbow was not there when they needed it.
Responsive.
Okay, if we are at the end of this presentation, let me ask you, Tracy, are you asking for this committee to take any action at this time?
No,
This
you
is an informational.
You've taken the
item?
action. The action I was looking for was for just feedback on the presentation
Okay.
and what else we could add
Okay.
for next month. So
Have you gotten what you needed?
absolutely. Thank you.
Shall we move on?
Yes.
Okay, items 13 and 14 are being skipped, one
Yeah.
forever, one for a month. And that gets us to item 15, detachment update, and I see there's a little handout here.
So you've all seen the report that LAFCO put out. They also did this short prospectus that just summarizes what's going on and basically what all the assumptions are going into the meeting on June 5th, which is going to be at 8 a.m. There, we're trying to get it moved out to 10 a.m. because it's really hard for people down here to get to downtown at 8 a.m. But
Yeah.
right, you almost need a sleepover. But what's nice about this is it was done by LAFCO. It summarizes, both sides. I think it's handy for staff to have also, because we're at a point now where it's going to vote. So we are not allowed to advocate. We can just inform. So there's really some good information in here. So it's finally time for the vote.
Wow.
There's a chance, so they've allowed both sides to speak for 30 minutes at that meeting. So depending on how much public speaker, people show up, they may push the vote out to just special meeting in July. I think they said July 10th, so.
And where is this?
So it's at the San Diego Administration Center, 1600 Pacific Highway. So it's in the board chambers.
Down there by the airport?
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
And
yeah, you're right. That's kind of hard to get to it.
That is.
It's being broadcast on either Zoom or YouTube also,
Okay.
if you go to their website.
How about the
Yeah.
town meeting?
Right across the
Is it
street
being
from the
broadcast? I don't know if that's being broadcast. Is
Imagine
it?
it.
Ships down,
Oh.
what used to be,
Good, okay, excellent,
Good.
yeah,
great.
Star of India.
With this. Yeah,
Anything else on item 15?
oh,
No, there was a lot of chatter at Aqua about detachment and, it's kind of fun to go and answer people's questions and network on that. Yeah, be interesting to see how it goes.
Are in other places in California or other districts looking at doing something like what we're doing? Or are we,
No.
We're the
I
lone
haven't
wolf
heard
out
that
there?
From anyone.
we're the lone wolf?
Pioneers.
Yeah. But there are people that have heard of us.
Our
did you do a
logistics.
presentation
Yeah.
at
Um,
on it?
No, we did not. Again, we're in a place where we can't really be advocating about it. It may be something that, a year from now that we talk about how the process went and, what we learned and could have done better, where we were
Right.
successful. That's a great idea.
Yeah, I would definitely present.
Yeah.
The
regardless.
logistics,
Oh.
logistic
regardless.
situation here is unique.
Mhm.
It really is unique. You don't find this situation in many other places where you have a urbanizing county, with a lot of population.
And it's a hard
With,
thing to tackle. It's something you really have to take the long view of.
Yeah, with a agricultural node on one side that happens to, conflate with the property line of another water purveyor. So, it's a logical thing, but it's not going to repeat itself over and over in California. They've taken a look at that, and there just aren't too many other situations that are even approaching ours.
Okay, we're going to go to item number 16. Review of the monthly board finance packet.
Okay, so one thing I did want to note on attachment D, it's a slight positive, but the red line is starting to curve back upwards. So I'm hoping that the variance of the prior year the gap will close slightly in the next 2 months. Our purchases did increase in April, and since we bill in arrears, I'm hoping that the May sales will show that. I did also want to give a shout out to customer service. So Erica and Josh for last month, the monthly call volume, there was a note in here that the average time in queue was 1 minute and 36 seconds. Josh and Erica were the only customer service staff for last month. So for them to be able to maintain that and keep that going with 2 reps, we did hire, they're starting in training, but I think that speaks to them to hold the fort down while they were short staffed.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
Any comments on the report?
No.
I have a couple questions. I'm looking at the cover memo on the front page and the section water purchases and water sales.
Mm-hmm.
It's always possible I'm misunderstanding something. What I'm seeing, it says purchases for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2023 are in line with the 5-year average blue line. But when I look at the chart,
Mhm.
what I see is the red line is really nowhere close to the blue line.
Yeah, that it was before. That might just be a typo.
Probably
So-
should've taken that out.
Yeah, it was for a few months and then that stopped
Okay.
being in line.
All right. And
Strike that from the record.
okay, and then it says FY23 purchases for the first 10 months are below FY22 and below the budgeted purchases that would support. And when I look at that, it is below the green line. So that's correct, right? That sentence stays, right? And we are forecasting sales of 12,700 or whatever, 750. So I think, am I reading the chart right? That's really what I'm going at here.
Yes, the red line is below all the other lines.
Yeah. And not anticipated at this point to swing up dramatically, right?
No, not dramatically. I'm hoping, like I said, that the gap will close between the variance to prior year, but I doubt it will actually meet it.
Okay,
We only have 2
Good.
months.
all right. Because I just was thinking, when I read this morning, I got a little confused and I was thinking, well, if I can be confused, maybe a board member would be confused if they read that and saw that. That's all. That's all. Okay, and then the other one is the item above that, Treasury report. And I know we are talking about little tiny itty bitty amounts of money here. So our interest revenue was less than the prior month. Gains from asset sales was up. And investment valuation was up. And since I'm wondering what happened, I'm kind of assuming that most of our interest income is coming off of CDs and treasury bills and things of that nature. Typically, to have an increase in revenue would mean that the yield went up, and typically when the yield goes up, the valuation goes down, but here our valuation also went up.
So our,
Am I
they're
cuckoo?
kind
Am
they're
I
actually kind
cuckoo?
of unrelated because our interest it's paid in bulk usually a quarter or 6 month period. So that's why April is lower than the prior month, because March we would have gotten a quarterly distribution of interest.
Oh,
We're going to see a lot of fluctuations on this over the next 6 months because I've done a plan with our investments to slowly sell off pieces based on when we need to pay on some of our capital projects, because we generally keep quite a bit of our funds in investments.
Mhm.
I've rarely had to do a lot of strategic selling, and I've got a plan for the next 6 to 9 months to cover all these large
We
projects
typically
we're
sell- Are
finishing
we
up.
typically looking to sell short-term or long-term holdings?
Well, I try to sell what we're going to have the least amount of loss on. I
Okay,
hate when we have to take a loss.
Right. right?
And we have some that are just maturing in the next 6 months, which closes quite a bit of the gap. So I'm working with our investment advisor to strategically look at what to sell.
So as they mature, then we get the full
We get the
value
funds
back.
and usually we just reinvest it in
Right.
something that makes sense and keeps our portfolio balanced.
But instead you could just keep the cash and
Right.
redeploy the cash rather than take the loss, book the
Right.
loss, right?
Exactly.
Okay, okay, all right.
And the rate should go up, right?
Yes. So, but unfortunately, we are going to see some losses the next few months because there are some I just have to sell and the market's
Mhm.
down right now. So I'm waiting as long as we have, as long
You're
as we
still working
can.
with that fellow that made the presentation a couple of years ago? Is he
A
still
couple
out?
years ago?
Huh?
A couple years ago?
Yeah.
Was it 6 years ago?
Oh, get out.
He gave a presentation before I was here, possibly. He passed
Oh.
away. I'm working with his son.
Okay, all right.
He was with the
all right.
same
He
company.
did a nice presentation.
Yeah, he had the New York accent.
Yeah,
Oh, I
yep,
really
yep,
liked him. Yeah, he
yep,
passed.
Yep, he seemed to have a good grasp on how to balance the portfolio.
Yeah,
out
he
and-
really helped us set up our investment policy, and get the first round of that. But that was, right before I started.
I enjoyed that presentation. Okay.
It's entertaining.
Those are the only questions I had. I told you they were small. Anything else? Anybody? All right, list of suggested agenda items for next time. So we'll be back with the budget, right?
Mhm.
Okay. And are we gonna do the meter thing next time?
Yes.
Presentation.
Okay, meter downsize, okay. I'm not aware of anything flowing from this agenda over to next time, other than the 2 items we mentioned. So as always, you guys can put stuff on, whatever, and that will be that. So if that is the case, I think at 1:51, this is almost a land speed record, Tracy.
Yeah.
I think we did one in 48 minutes once
I
before.
agree.
Yeah, I think this is not quite a land speed
I
record, but
remember
with
that.
but it's close. And so I'm going to go ahead and adjourn this meeting with everyone's agreement, and we'll call it QED. Let's quit and eat dinner. Yep. All right.
you know.